Intro song. Good afternoon. I want to welcome my panelists, Facebook, YouTube. I'm not sure if Instagram is on there, but welcome everyone for the conversation that we're having today. But before I tell you what the topic is, I want to let you know who I am and about my organization. My name is Veronica White. I have a nonprofit called Help from a Sister, where we cater to families who have a child on the autism spectrum. We help them transition from where they are to where they desire to be by providing tools, techniques, and resources. And our mission this year is simple. We want to teach parents to become better advocates for their loved one. Now, with that being said, we're preparing for a conference on August 22nd. But today we're going to have a brief conversation with several of the speakers that's going to be at that conference. And to start the conversation, now, my organization has been in existence for 5 years, but the last 2 years, it was repurposed just for this mission, is to help parents. So thank you all for tuning in. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. And towards the end of our conversation, we're going to take a couple of questions from the audience. But thank you for allowing us to share our information with you today. So we're going to go around and have everyone introduce themselves. Christian, you're on line.
Okay. Okay, hi, my name is Christian Cameron. I practice as a BCBA and an LBA, which is a behavior analyst. So I work with families who have a child that is on the spectrum, or I've also worked with teenagers. I've done parent trainings, and I've also worked in early steps where I kind of helped with those early signs of seeing red flags before a child is diagnosed, and kind of just teaching skills to help manage behavior such as meltdowns and different things of that nature.
Awesome. So if we're staying with the tune of things, George, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hey everybody, my name is George Booth. I'm 25 years old. I'll be 26 soon in May. I am the owner of G Booth Photos, in which I'm a photographer, and I'm also on a photo booth. And I started this back in end of 2023. I do a lot of fun events like birthday parties, proms, baby showers, and weddings, and other fun events. So I go around and do a lot of take pictures of beautiful people and capturing all the beautiful moments. And I also wrote a book on the diagnosis and stop the dream. I'm the co-author of the book.
Awesome. Yeah. Can you open your jacket a little so we can see it? The diagnose, don't stop. It's the heart. And then at the bottom, it says the dream, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Those are nice.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tawana Booth. I'm the author of The Diagnosis Then Stop the Dream. I'm also the vice president of All Families United, and that's an autism organization specializing in hosting events to get our children out of the home, because sometimes our children are not always invited places. So we do about a couple of events a year, funny family-oriented events just to get folks out of the home. I'm also George Booth assistant to G Booth Photos, and I'm the #1 advocate to my son George Booth and other his peers, and I'm happy to be here. Thank y'all for having me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Dorica Benson Delaney, also known as Queen D. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, an author, and for the last decade, I have been homeschooling my three children, now four. Just recently had a new baby. I have been the lead researcher on my own family's neuromechanics, and my work focuses on the visible neurological needs that often go unsupported, whether it be black and brown girls, because a lot of the research that we had for so long was not upon us, or 2E, which is twice exceptional, is for individuals that are brilliant, bright, as well as autistic and ADHD. And a lot of times those symptoms go back and forth in masking, so they don't get the highlightedness of getting the help for their neurodivergent conditions, as well as AUDHD individuals, which is people who have combining ADHD and autism. That's my specialty because that's my family. I'm diagnosed with ADHD combined type, which means both types of ADHD as well as autism and 2E. My children are as well. Over the last 2 years, I'll just be sharing my journey as how I've uncovered that and really bring a voice to this small marginalized community because a lot of times if the disability isn't very seen, we feel like we don't get to speak up and say that we have it. So that's what I'll be here for.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing. Miss Deborah, did you want to introduce yourself and tell about your organization?
Well, I am a visitor, Veronica. My name is Deborah, and I am the president and CEO of Safari Soul Missionary Program. So we have service for youth, men and women, and my goal and purpose is to be a positive role model for the youth and the young men and women in my program.
Awesome. And then you all have art programs as well. Right?
Yes, we do also have art program. We have artist by the name of Charlie O. And I'll share some more information about him later on. Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
Yes.
Well, thank you all so much for coming out and sharing your information on a topic. So the presentation is going to be about how can we become better advocates for our loved one on the autism spectrum? And why does this conversation matter? So I'm gonna give you a little history. I have a 5-year-old grandson who on October 24th, 2024 was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. Prior to that diagnosis, we didn't know how to communicate with each other. He was signaling, he was signing, he was trying to tell me that he was hungry, he was thirsty, but I didn't know what that meant. So it was a struggle. And not only was it a struggle trying to communicate with him, it was a struggle trying to get doctors, speech pathologists, occupational therapists to even see him so we can identify what's going on or who can help us. It took me 7 to 8 months to get an appointment. Now, even though it only took me 7 to 8 months, I was informed that it's a 2-year waiting list to be evaluated. Then there's another 9 to 12-month waiting list to get the services if you had the right insurance. Well, my grandson didn't have the right insurance at the time. And it was like, wow, it was very frustrating and overwhelming knowing that this baby need help. And I'm the grandparent, his mom and dad, like we're the only ones who's supposed to be able to understand them. If we can't understand them, how can we tell the doctors or the school? So I had to sit back one day and was like, wow, if he's going through this, and this was after, okay, now we have the diagnosis and he has began services. And I'm looking at him and then thinking about other parents or other children that, wow, if their parents are not persistent and they take no or 2-year waiting list and they accept it because they feel they don't have nothing else to do, what's going to happen to their child. Because the earlier you can get them the services, the better they'll be off in life. And I understand that some parents, once they do receive a diagnosis or something that's identified that your child is uniquely made, because he's made according to God's design for him, that the parents go through a transition of first they blame themselves. They think it's their fault that their child learned differently or that they're communicating in a different way. So they look at themselves and they go through a journey of whatever the idea or vision in their head for their child. They let that go and be like, no, now I got to take care of him the rest of my life. And sometimes that period lasts longer than it needs to. This conversation, I want to let parents know that whatever dream you have in mind for your child, he still gets to accomplish that. Or even better, he gets to have the life that he wants as long as we become better advocates and learn what we need to learn to help them. They get to be whatever type of citizen they want to be in this world. So that's where the conversation stems from, my journey of helping my grandson get the services and finding out how hard it was because the professionals who was supposed to be able to guide me in the right direction, I would say they kind of pushed me along, adhere to whatever their time frame was, whether it's 6 months, 2 months, 5 months, but they didn't consider the fact that this is a child that needs help. And I don't know what he needs. They have an idea, but for whatever reason, they chose not to act accordingly. So that's where the conversation is stemming from. That's where my passion lies, because I don't want, if I can help it and share the information, another parent to be in that same situation that I was in for my grandson. So that's why we're having this conversation today on what can we tell parents that if their child, they feel something is wrong, the child is not speaking or they're not crawling, they're not doing a developmental milestones, what should we tell them? Or who is their first person they need to reach out to when something like that's happening? So I would say, and then I, of course, let you all answer. Talk to your child's pediatrician to let them know, like, hey, my child did start making sounds and then they stopped, or my child is not crawling or not doing things that I see other kids doing. Because if it's your first child, you don't know what that child should be doing or not doing. But if it's not, or if it's someone that tells you like, hey, your child is doing this, don't look at what the information they're telling you and feel that they're talking about your child or they're putting you on Front Street. Take the information to say, okay, it's a possibility. Maybe I noticed that. Then talk to your child's pediatrician. What would you tell them, Miss Booth?
I would tell them, main thing, first of all, speak with your pediatrician, because your pediatrician will start the process of sending you to the correct doctors. Like when George, before he had his official diagnosis, when we had concerns, we went to the pediatrician, and then they said, okay, we're gonna send him to the ear doctor. We're gonna send him to the eye doctor, send him to all of these doctors to check to see if he could do the correct, answer everything correctly. And when those answers came back that everything wasn't in their eyes normal, that's when they sent all the paperwork back to the pediatrician, and that's the pediatrician who actually was like, "Hey, George has autism."
So your primary care pediatrician is the one who diagnosed your son.
Well, after all of
the testing,
and I also did Child Find. Have you ever heard of Child Find?
No. What's Child Find?
Okay, Child Find is a program that when you're trying to find out if your child is on the autism spectrum, they have a series of things that they send your child to, like pretend play, um, making talking to them to see how they react and listen. So it's about an hour long testing, but it's one on one with your child, and they have like this big setup. And if people Google it, they'll see it. It's called Child Find, and they have different centers around Chicago. So it's probably be one near you, or you can get to it. But that's the initially the process started. I went to Child Find. That after how you said the doctors when you feel like people not moving fast enough.
Yes.
So I felt like that they wasn't moving fast enough. So that's when I started Googling things on my own, looking up things. At the time, it wasn't too much Google, but it was looking up stuff on the computer. I did a lot of that. So when I looked up, I found out about Child Find, and then that's when I took my son over there. So that was one of the steps. And then when I went back to the pediatrician, they also started their process. So I got kind of diagnosis from two different places. But
Awesome.
yeah, but that's how it all started. And if I wouldn't have been persistent with trying to find out what was going on with my child, I would have just been waiting on the doctors. How you said, taking. I was kind of impatient. I was just like needed to know answers, persistent. Even when he was younger. So
And that's awesome because your journey started over 22 years ago now.
yeah.
So the internet wasn't as
But I
it
had
had
a
vast
computer,
information,
and I
but you
stayed
was
on it.
persistent.
Mhm.
Correct. Awesome. Okay, sounds great. Miss Deidre, Derica, I'm sorry.
Um, I honestly, if I speak wholly and truly, I would say the first thing to do is just to speak to God, talk to God on it. When you're hearing things from family members, when you're maybe even seeing things or questioning it yourself, take all things to God, but especially your child, anything you're seeing. For me, my journey has been it's been long, it's been hard. It's easier for you to see things in other children but not in your own. And one thing I had to do, even outside of autism, ADHD, and all that, because my son had bust his teeth wide open when he was really early, and I had to get rid of the idea of what I wanted them to look like, what I wanted them to be like. And once I could like release that idea and just what do I have in front of me, I was able to be able to say, okay, even though a lot of what sometimes your child is not going to fit what people saying, you're going to say, I don't see it. Sometimes, especially because, like I say, I want to highlight how a lot of the data is not specifically for Black girls. A lot of Black girls get lost in this autism thing. And so you might not feel it, but if you take it to God and you ask God, if this is what it is, my child, keep showing it to me, keep bringing it to me. Next thing you know, you'll in a conversation, somebody will bring some up, they'll highlight, they'll give you a name of somebody. Next thing you know, you'll be on social media scrolling, and your algorithm, if you call it the algorithm, just bring it to you. That's how my journey happened. I started seeing things. I'm on my fourth child now, and I can see it very early in her. I'm already went to her doctor. She's 14 months. I started talking about let's get an early evaluation. I'm going to start early intervention. My son, he was around 1.5. At that time, I had just transitioned out of the military. I was living in California. I didn't have any family around, but I was having a hard time, you know. And all I know is this is my baby, and so I'm not trying to harm you. I just want to figure out how this could work for both of us. I can get you to do things. I can have an easier day, but also what is going on here. And so this is what I made my mantra or my main thing is your child okay? When you're seeing a behavior, when you're seeing these things, or when the level is high, stress is very high for you at home, the main thing is your child okay? So no matter what I was going through, no matter if someone say, oh, it's autism, this, it didn't matter what it is, what they say or whatever, help. Is he okay? How can he get okay? That's the bridge, that's the line. So I just started to read and just utilize. I utilized early on Even if I didn't believe in my head, I said, okay, well, I'm gonna just do that autism stuff that they said work, and if it worked for you, then hey, it worked. And so I had already started. When I moved back to Chicago, I was on my journey. I getting my own stuff, help through the VA, and I said, hey, I would like to get some family support, family therapy. They kept saying, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Because you couldn't really see it. I said, I don't really know how to explain it. I said, maybe my children need some therapists. I don't know, but I would like to get some type of evaluation. I went to Rush Road Home. I know Rush Road Home through their veterans program is how I got in, but I've heard that they have one of the best autism evaluation and help in the city. But that's where my children originally got their diagnosis. However, because we were a homeschool family, it was there was a lot of bias there. It was hard to get a formal diagnosis. It would say, "Oh, we believe it to be this," but they didn't want to finalize it. For my daughter, for my son, it was clear. So I didn't stop there. I really didn't care if you give me a diagnosis. If whatever you tell me, like I'm still treating. So I was still that thing you're talking about, child fine. I had ended up on there. I think they were at the library on 31st. I went to one of those events. So just being relentless, honestly, and like you said, back then it wasn't as much information that you had at the library. The library is still there. I'm always at the library. The library, social media, various things like utilizing to get the support. So I would just say that like if you have an idea or you've heard someone say it or even if there's an inkling of suspect, take it to God first because God is going to give you what you need. And by utilizing that, not only was I able to give my children like the help and support they need, I was able to help myself. Go back to my doctor, say, hey, originally I got, which is a big thing I want to bring up. Originally, I was told that I may have been bipolar. Come to find out, it wasn't bipolar. Why did I bring that one back up? Because Black women kept bringing the information on social media saying that, hey, this is the data. This is what they were saying. They was misdiagnosing Black women for bipolar back in the day. Because also, I accepted the bipolar diagnosis because when they told me, I said, oh, well, I heard, my grandmother maybe had something. But then my Black male therapist that was separate, he told me, he said, question that too. Because even back in that day, they were misdiagnosing them. And so I did. And then when I went back 5 or 6 years later for a new formal diagnosis, there was autism phenotype. And then autism phenotype means you don't meet the full criteria. You meet maybe half of the criteria, but it's in your DNA. And clearly, because all my children came out with some sort of the autism phenotype or autism. And then the thing about it is because they have the ADHD, which a lot of times is co-occurring with Black boys and girls, is that you'll see the ADHD more, and then people look at that as a behavioral thing and not knowing that they're actually overstimulated or taking in their environment over processing. So I would just say, give it to God because God is going to give you the full sword to keep going and figure out whatever your child needs.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. That's amazing. So you touched on some good points that I wanted to bring up. One in reference to if your child is having a meltdown, right? So once your child is diagnosed, or even before, if you see some behaviors that your child is exhibiting, right? I know in the moment you can't do it, but once you get your child safe and calm, make a notation that, hey, my child acted out. And what was the reason? And what did you do to calm him to get him into a safe state? So, for instance, my grandson, before we understood it, when he was hungry, he didn't know how to tell us. So he would throw everything off the table. He would turn chairs down. He would be yelling, kicking. But once he got something to eat, he calmed down and he was fine. So I realized, okay, when I go pick up this baby, I need to ask him the last time he ate. So now we have a schedule. Every 2 hours, he's getting a snack. 4 hours, he's getting a meal. So if he gets that, now I'm not going to have him overreact or have a meltdown because he's hungry and he can't communicate it. Because my grandson is pre-verbal. So now if I'm giving him to someone, or if he's going to school, I let him know, like, oh, he had breakfast and he did this and this around the time. Because if you let it go 2 hours and 15 minutes, You see a whole different Dayon. And if we can start documenting that and writing it down, so therefore, which we're going to touch bases on this too, when we go to an IEP meeting or someone, the therapist or the behavior doctor is looking at your child, you can let them know these are my child's triggers. We need their triggers, not only for us to document it, to let the schools know or anybody that's working with your child. Because if your child have a behavior in reference to, you've already shared with them, these are the reasons he would have this, they can't punish your child for that behavior. But if you don't know your rights, you will allow them to label your child or to detain him or restrain him because they didn't either read the information or they didn't know how to address it, even though you shared the information. So it's good for us to start documenting. I want to say that's what I would tell parents. After you let your child pediatrician know that there's something wrong, start documenting certain things around about your child. So therefore because you are your child's biggest advocate. They're looking at how you respond to them and how you're communicating with them. We do have professionals. We have doctors, teachers, and everyone here or everyone there that has degrees. But sometimes their degree is not in reference to your child. Each child is very unique, and they try to deal with them according to their skills, or your child's not going to fit on their skill. So that's where your expertise come in at. Depending on how old your child is, you are the expert on your child. And because you're the expert and you want to have your child succeed in whatever form and fashion that they see best, it's best to document it and become your child's best advocate. So my next question would be, when your child is school age, right? You're taking your child to pre-K, kindergarten, or first grade, or even higher, whichever age. What would the first conversation with your child's teacher, what would that be? How would you approach them in reference to your child?
Is that just up for, that's just a question in general for
Is
you
it?
to answer?
Mm-hmm.
I can speak to that. So like I said, I homeschool my children. They just went to school for the first time this school year.
Mm-hmm.
So of course the conversation was a lot different because they were coming into a school year and they had never been into a school at all. So one, it was to basically let them know what's going on. But I think honestly and truly, especially because I just kind of like want to see, I think the first day they just went in. They just went there. And I think literally I maybe was going to, you know how you get that first week, you was going to go in and introduce, talk to the school. I think within a few days, the teacher had my daughter, because they went to two separate schools. That's another thing. So my boys went to charter. My daughter didn't. Specifically though, because I parent them according to their need. And so when I was homeschooling them, my son, even though he presents more autism traits, his brilliance is like unmatched. So when I'm teaching her, he was way above, like levels above her. And so her confidence would be very skewed if all you're ever working with is your younger brothers and they're, going above you. But also she has some dyslexia. She also has an eye processing ability. She had other things that when I were in conversation with other women or just getting in community with other people, I was able, if they say, hey, maybe she doesn't struggle with math, maybe it's this. And one thing I always say, there could be truth anywhere. So I don't just ever just dismiss something as full. And so I'll look into it. And when I looked into it, I took her to an eye doctor. Come to find out she does have an eye processing ability. She is dyslexic. That's the first thing her teacher said. She said, hey, we're very happy to have her with us at the school year. She's a great advocate because that's what I did for those 10 years my children were at home. Regardless of what's going on, regardless of how you learn, you're going to be an advocate for yourself. You're going to believe in yourself. You're going to have you're going to understand that without anyone else, if you need help, raise your hand. If you didn't understand, or if they need to say it again, or if you need to step away, you need a break, you need to decompress, ask for it. You're not hurting nobody doing that. How we get to the symptoms where it's more where they're acting out in it's because their needs aren't being unmet. They're not getting the chance to have a break. They can't speak up. They can't say these things. So when you can create that environment, that's where it stays. So one thing, when the teacher comes to me, she says, "Yeah, she's a great advocate." She says, "But I'm seeing some dyslexia. Do you say that? Do you believe that?" And I say, "Yeah." And I imagine when I said earlier with Rush Rohome, the interviewer at the time, she was very biased with my daughter, black girls, right? As far as giving the diagnosis, she gave her the combined type ADHD diagnosis, but then she labeled her ODD and opposition defiant disorder. And just like the bipolar, on the bigger scale for the black women, the ODD is on the younger scale. So I accepted it originally because right, I'm just learning this information, but originally I did. And then I thought about, I said, I know a lot of little black girls with ODD. I said, I kind of got that too. You know, it just keep at it and keep. And when people say, "Oh well, if you have autism phenotype, your son has autism," being say your daughter probably had it too, and it's being labeled as ODD. And so I dig deeper into that. So one thing I can say, I know the question was about what is your first day. I don't
for
go
the children.
heavy. I wouldn't go heavy on, oh, my child is this, they need this, they this. I like to see how the child acts in the environment first. And then, the second day or the week, I'll speak up and I'll come with the information because I want to see, what do you think? That's first off, I want to see how can you help my child. So what is your observation? I don't want to just come in and give you a sheet and you checking boxes because I want to know. Because if you can't objectively view them or see what a need is, you really can't help them, and not just transfer them. So
Okay, sounds great. Thank you for sharing.
I
Tawana.
just wanted to say that that was again George 25, so that was a long time ago. But I was able to um, stay in the classroom and observe for a long time and for some years. I heard they don't allow you to do that anymore, but I was fortunate to be able to actually sit in the back of the classroom. And I think before they had a parent actually sitting in the classroom, sad to say, they wasn't really doing their job. Um, George went to a lot of schools because if I felt like you wasn't doing your job, I thought I observed you and then I expressed the needs that I wanted for my child and they wasn't met. I was transferring. So if you all get a chance to read my book, you'll see he went to a whole lot of schools. But I was able to sit in the classroom and observe, and then I think when they seen that I was serious because I actually worked at night and I should have been asleep, but my child came first. So when they seen that I was serious, then that's when they had to start doing their job, doing the work. So I would say observe and see if you can, but I heard that you can't do it today. But just observe and then make sure that you express the needs that you want for your child. And if your child have an IEP, make sure you read the IEP and make sure they following what's on the IEP. And a lot of times, if you're not paying attention to the IEP, they will put those same things and just change the date. So your child's needs not changing, just the date changing. So a lot of parents don't pay attention to that. So I would say that, but just make sure whatever needs that's on your child IEP and whatever needs that you want for your child, please express it and then make sure that those needs are met. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Thanks. So, Christian, did you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely will say, just piggybacking off of some of the things that I have heard. Definitely, if your child have an IEP, make sure like when your child is new to a school that you are going in and you are stating those needs and reiterating it because a lot of times schools are understaffed, they are underfunded. So when parents don't ask questions and they don't reach out or do any of those type of things, the schools kind of do what they want to do. And if the IEP isn't being followed or nobody's following up on it, it will be a habit of continuation. So you have to start off with that expectation and letting them know, like, you check up on those type of things. You will be asking for a report at the end of the day. If my child was acting up or acting out, let me know what was going on. Write it on a report. If they're not eating a lunch, if they're throwing it away, let me know. So that way you build that communication and that rapport early on with the stakeholders at the school.
Awesome. Thank you. So y'all bring up good points about this IEP. So I'm gonna speak from the parents' perspective. Most of the time, the parents don't really understand what the IEP is for. Yes, they know they have a mean and they have some goals on there, right? Eventually, hopefully by the end of this year, I want to do a mock IEP meeting for parents. So therefore, when they go in, they're not feeling overwhelmed or like all these people are professionals. Whether I have a degree or not, I don't understand. So I'm just gonna be quiet so they don't know that I'm not following what they're saying. And that's the worst thing that can happen for our child is we sit there and we be quiet and we let them put what they want on that IEP. And then if they don't reach that goal, they just push it back to next year. Say, oh no, they didn't reach it. We're gonna do it next year. That means they're not doing their job. But if we as parents don't know what is supposed to be on there or what we get to ask for, right? And we need to build our vocabulary to include some key things: free and appropriate education. Each child needs a free and appropriate education. It's not the standard. If my child needs additional time in math, then you can't tell me I have no one to sit and do math with him. I do not monitor your budget. That's not my job. As a parent, I'm saying, based on our testing, what my child needs, he needs additional time in math. However, y'all figured it out, it's not my job. We have it on this IEP, which is a living document, right? I just need you to tell me who's going to do it, what time, and how often he's going to get it. All that other stuff has nothing to do with me, but the school feels it's in their best interest to let us know about their budget restraints and what they can do, and they don't have the right person for this. And we'd be like, oh, okay, well, I guess. No, we can no longer say it's okay. It's not. If this is in the IEP, we put it there, it's in writing. I need y'all to figure out how to make it happen. And just tell me who's supposed to do it so I can follow up on it. So that's why I want to do a mock meeting, just like we're sitting down here, because this is the table they sit down at to have the IEP meeting for your child. Go ahead.
And I just wanted to say I'm glad you brought that up because I did eventually sue the Chicago Public Schools for not giving my son a free and appropriate education.
Yes.
So, you sit at the table and they want to act like they not honoring your needs for your child when you study expressing it. So again, like I said, they feel like they could just, like he said, they'll just do anything, even though you showing them you serious. You're telling them this is what I want for my child,
Yes.
and then they study saying the same things on these IEP, not following them, not doing them, even though I'm expressing my need. So I did wind up suing Chicago Public Schools for a free and appropriate education for my child.
So that is a vocabulary word. And we're going to have a couple of more. But that's what I want that mock IEP to be, so the parents can have the confidence to know that you deserve a seat at that table. And your concerns are not only for his education, but community. The school's supposed to help with social interaction that's appropriate for your child. You have to share that information with them. in a way that it's not asking their permission, it's requiring that it's included in that IEP. So,
Another thing. No,
so come introduce yourself to her. Let's see if the camera's going to pick you up over there.
Hi, my name is Toy White. I'm the founder and CEO.
It hasn't picked you up yet. Oh, keep speaking.
Of Success Personal Support.
There you go.
I work with adults and children with autism. Another thing that you can do is if your child has autism and they're in the school district, the district has money to pay for them to get extra help or send them out somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when people don't understand that if you have a child and they need ABA therapy, they can send them to an ABA therapy company so that they can get the help and then come back to school.
So the school has a budget to cover ABA.
If it's to the extremes, if it's an extreme case, they do have the budget to say, hey, okay, let's bring, this is Miss Kelly Winbush. She's the owner of Key to Hope. So they would they would talk to her, and if they needed to send Toy to Miss Winbush, they could. They have to take it out their budget and pay for it. But a lot of times parents don't know
that they don't know they can ask for that.
Yes, they can ask for that. If it's extreme, if they feel like there's no one there at the school that can actually do the job, they can contact Miss Winbush. Hey, I need to send Toy over here, for X amount of hours. And they have it in the budget. They'll tell you no, but they have it in the budget. Because if it's an extreme case and that's their district, their school district, they have to give you some help.
So what is considered an extreme case?
When no one there or the person that they're bringing in can actually help that child to take care of them if they're in school, if they, falling out, hitting, scratching, biting, and
hitting their head against the wall.
Yes.
Because the teachers are not trained to be a behavior.
A board certified behavior analyst.
Okay, a board certified behavior analyst. They're trained to be a teacher. And the principals are not trained for that as well. So because they're not, if your child is having behaviors and you're leaving it up to the school, which we already know that's not what their degree is in, we need to be going to ask for the service that, hey, my child is hitting people. He's biting. He's hitting his head on the wall. He's acting out. I understand y'all wanted to have your moment to try, but we actually need a behavior BCBA to come and assist with this. So what do we need to do for our next meeting to get a BCBA on board to help? Not asking them when or who can they find. No, I have someone. Just tell me how do we need to go about this? Because as long as we're asking the school, they can delay us. They can say, okay, well, we can do it at his next evaluation. This is just a standard meeting. I was told that. That's why I'm bringing that up, because I just spoke to a person last week and was telling her that they told me about my grandson when he first went to pre-K that, okay, he started school in August. We had a meeting in October. And at the October meeting, I was telling them that when he was evaluated, that was a year and a half ago, and some things has changed. He's accomplished some of those goals. She was like, no, this meeting, we're not making any changes. We're just acknowledging his IEP. And we'll do that at our next meeting. I didn't know no better, y'all. I'm learning. I'm still learning. I said, okay. And we had that meeting. So my concerns were documented, but nothing was addressed. They was postponing it into our next meeting. So, and I just shared this with a lady last week. She was like, no, every time you all sit down as a team, that's a meeting. Changes could be made. There's no particular day where it has to be postponed to the next time to make a change on a living document. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So, because I just found this out last week, I'm letting you all know now that You do not have to wait for the next meeting to make a change or make a note. Because if it's something that they wanted to change or update, they did it in that meeting. They didn't wait till the next time. So as a parent, you don't have to wait either. And if they do make you wait, document it. Send an email, say, according to the meeting we had yesterday, you told me that we can't do X, Y, and Z into our next meeting. Send that email, because now you need to go above their heads, because now they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And
a comment online states that if they keep fighting you on it, file a complaint with ISBE. I'm not quite sure what ISBE is, if they can put that in the chat.
okay, what the initial, because we need to learn what these initials are for too. Okay, sounds great.
Can I add something?
Go ahead. Sure.
Also, like, do not just let them make the time and the date of the IEP meeting and just inform you last minute, and you trying to skate around to make the IEP meeting, because it is your right to know about that time and date ahead of time. And if you're not available, you're not available, and they need to reschedule it to a time when you are available, versus you trying to scrape around to find a babysitter, call off for work, any of those type of things. You do not have to do. They have to reschedule it around your schedule, not theirs.
Awesome. Yes. And I want to add to that too.
So the initials for the ISBE is the Illinois State Regulation for Special Education. So you can file a complaint with them if they keep fighting you on what you're stating needs to be done in the IEPs.
Awesome. And you know what? I also wanted to let parents know that for that IEP meeting, you should request it 10 days before the meeting. You do not have to wait until the day of the meeting and now they're giving you the document and going over it. When they've had months to prepare for that, they can supply it to you 10 days before. And let me tell you the reason why you need it 10 days before. Because you've been working with a speech pathologist or occupational therapist or different people in reference to your child. You need to send a portion of that to them to say, hey, can you explain this to me? These are my child's goals. Is there something that I'm missing out of this? Because again, we don't understand the document completely, but there are some people that do, that can actually break it down to help us. So therefore, when we do go to the meeting, we can get the things that we're asking for and put it in the language that the teacher and the professionals will know that, no, I'm not here by myself. I have people that's willing to help me to help my child. So please start requesting that you receive your IEP meeting a week and a half before the meeting. So therefore you get a chance to prepare and see if those are the accommodations that your child needs for them to succeed for that school year or that quarter. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point. Now go ahead, Ms. Deidre. Go ahead. Dorica.
I had a few things to piggyback off what was said. Since I'm at two different schools, I kind of seen the process from two different ways. So at my son's school, she did tell me, hey, anytime, also he's at 504, I'll speak about that. But anytime you want to call a meeting, she said you can call a meeting at any time. You can message us and say, hey, this has been going on. I would like to call a meeting. Let's try to review these things. Certain things that were given he might not need anymore. She just said that you have that flexibility as a parent if you see fit to request a meeting. Also, what I was going to say, my main thing was the cooperate. That was like the thing, cooperate. I think you said that was just something. You was like, you guys are working together, cooperating on everything, and I believe that. So you come into this table and you're seeking a need for your child, and then they're telling you, and you're just sitting there. No, I don't even do that. And the doctors, I hate that for myself. If you're gonna tell me what's gonna be best for me, then let me. If you guys are gonna deliberate on what you think is best, let me speak up too. Like your voice matters as well,
yes,
as well as your child. Before I even went into the meeting, I sat down with my child. I said, hey, what do you think you need at school to kind of help you? Oh, I don't know. I said, I don't know. What do you need more time? I know. Do you need help doing this? So I really tried to see what do they, because sometimes you can come out with all these ideas, or they can come up with all those ideas, and it just might not hit for the child. So the first thing I did was ask my children, what did they think that they need? Um, Second thing that I did too, because I can say this as someone who served in the second top rigorous Navy program, that I myself was very nervous showing up to these meetings with all of these people around and trying to use what their title or whatever to overpower what I was saying. I was like, okay, great. I had to bring myself down. I had to calm myself down, and I had to make sure that I was prepared. Spoke to myself, as if I was like, I actually, the way I say it was like I was walking to go fight a case as a lawyer. Like that's how I felt, and how I felt like that I was going to go up in there like Johnny Cocker is that I came with my briefcase. I came, and for everything, like especially if I'm specifically, because you have to look at your own child. A lot of times your child may have co-occurring things, right? And so I'm like, okay,
I'm sorry, excuse me. Let me just backtrack. Co-occurring things. Co-occurring things.
Yep.
Break that down.
So like my child, she has the ODD diagnosis, which I really believe is ADHD. But as far as school, what's hindering, it is the processing disability for the eyes. It is the dyslexia. She has combined type ADHD. So when I come in, I say, hey, this is how ADHD appears for girls. This is how autism appears for girls. Then I will say, this is how it appears with girls who have combined ADHD and autism. So when they say, we don't see this for her, we don't see this for her, we don't see this for her, I say, you did, you were seeing this. And then I will use their words. I say, you specifically said this. This actually is how it shows up for girls. If you looked at the handout, I gave that to you all. Because I was just at first going to say, okay, 504, what's the difference? No, go for the IEP. Because it's like you said, it's a living document. And it has way more validity. And so for me, once I heard somebody say, that, I was like, oh, I'm coming. I let them know before the meeting. I'm gonna let you guys know I'm not here for a 504. I'm gonna be presenting evidence to get an IEP. And I was able to secure that for my daughter specifically because she has the processing disability. Literally, her eyes are checked. It says that she's flipping these words. I have that from a doctor. So you guys are not going to just get me to say I'm okay with a 504. And it was back and forth. And we didn't finalize the plan the first day. We would have to reconvene. Okay, well, we're going to reconvene, So that was that battle. After that battle, about 2 weeks later, was my son's meeting for his 504. That battle is still going because he has the 504. They're like, we'll look for the IEP another time. Because it's so hard when you have a child that's excelling, like in academics, you have a child that can mask, right? So they're like, oh, he's so great, he's this. And I'm like, okay, well now guess what? Now he's been there. They're like, oh, we can't believe he did this. Oh, would you believe this? Yeah, I would believe that. I told you all that he is diagnosed. That's how you get that separate diagnosis. Don't allow the school. I'm glad that I went the route I did. And now I want to present this information for others. If you can, literally get your diagnosis from the doctor. Do not do it from the school because when you do it from the doctor, it holds more weight. So when I come from the doctor, I can say, hey, regardless of what you all see, he's been evaluated by Lurie's and by Rush Rohom, and he's been diagnosed with autism. So regardless if you see it, it's there. He has combined type ADHD as well. And then I bring in the 2E profile. 2E is twice exceptional. Like just last week when his teacher was speaking to something, I said, hey, I talked to the aide last time, but have you looked up what 2E is? He said, oh, no, I never looked up that. So how can you really handle or teach my son, which is what my addendum that I sent to request again for the IEP, because I want to always, sometimes it feel like you're just being picky or you're just on their back, but then you say, no, this is my child, and I sent the email because I said, hey, per my request last time, I'm following up for a third time with new information. Every time they come with me and say he did something, I use that to send a new email and say, can we get this IEP done before the end of the school year? The 504 is great, but I want the IEP so you guys can actually be able to help my son in the areas that he need help, which, like you said, it's more the socialization. They're supposed to help with that.
Exactly.
So
But let me
it's
touch
really a
basis
battle.
on something you just said. Another key word when it comes to dealing with these school districts is no. No, in different aspects, we would say no is a complete sentence. But when you're saying no in the education environment, no just says you need more information. You need to provide them. Like you just said, no, I like to do this, this, and this. So now I want parents to make a note. No, when it comes to advocating for your child means the school needs additional information. You hear how she said she sent the email to him and said, this is my third time. And here's additional information we need to consider as a team for my child. You have to stress that and let them know. No is not the end be all. It's not it. And we cannot accept that for our babies. We have to let them know, okay, you saying no at this time. Don't worry, we'll revisit. I'm gonna go back and do some more research and come back to you. All right, and then
I'm Kelly Wimbush Fairley. I'm a BCBA, and I started Keys Home Behavior Services back in 2012. I work with the lifespan, so I work with children as young as 2, all the way through older adults into their 80s with intellectual disabilities and autism, um, and other special needs and clinical diagnoses. So I wanted to say a couple different things. First thing I heard that was alarming for me that I want to say, especially to folks that look like us, if your child is ever slapped with an ODD diagnosis, fight that to the death.
I'm sorry, excuse me. What's ODD?
Oppositional defiant disorder. I heard a couple of different people say that their child was diagnosed with that.
Okay.
That is a diagnosis that often leads to the school to prison pipeline. And that is also something our children are frequently misdiagnosed with. And this is something I have been taught by older white clinicians, that this is something that our children are often diagnosed with. And it is actually one of the most rare diagnoses that one could see if it's diagnosed properly. It's very rare that someone actually has it. Unfortunately, one of the things that we see within our schools and with our children is that they may have a presentation of autism or ADHD or another intellectual disability that is not necessarily what some clinicians would call clinically significant. So that means it's basically over the top, right? So we're not seeing those huge signs that someone may say, oh, there's a problem. It may be more minimal or not as recognizable to the person who is uneducated on that particular disorder. And because of that, those individuals who may be more impulsive or more hyperactive in the classrooms, those are the individuals, or may have like a quick wit, like if someone says something, they're quick to say something back, or they're quick to just speak out of turn without raising their hands. Those type of infractions get our children in trouble much more, and to the point of suspension, also leading to the school to prison pipeline. Mm-hmm. When oftentimes it is an issue of cultural bias from the teachers who are there, who are not understanding that our children learn in different ways. Yes. And they're just reared. They're raised in different ways. Like we are just more expressive, not just vocally, but gesturally as a people. So sometimes that is misinterpreted as being more quote unquote aggressive, unfortunately. So because of that, it is important to also establish a good relationship with the instructors in your child's classroom. And not just the instructors, but administrators as well, to let them know, hey, I'm present. Because one thing I have learned over the years is that prior to you getting to the nitty gritty and learning all the laws and the rules that you all been speaking about, sometimes it takes just, hey, I'm here and I'm present. I'm not what you think it is, where my child is just getting sent home just to an empty home and their mama or daddy just isn't around. It's not that. I'm very present. I'm here for my child. And sometimes that right there is enough to let them know I mean business and you're gonna treat my baby with some respect up in here. Um, the next thing that I want to say is that a lot of times our children are diagnosed with things that, again, because of clinical or the teachers' cultural bias, they don't understand what's going on. Unfortunately, our children, more than anybody as well, children of color, experience trauma as children more often, and the presentation and the symptoms of a child who's experienced trauma and living with post-traumatic stress disorder often come through as what looks like ADHD. So there are a lot of times that an individual in their school setting may think that they have ADHD, and you go take them to get assessed, and they may not actually have it. But that assessor may have foregone uh, trauma assessments, and now you have a baby who's still exhibiting these issues, but they want to treat it for ADHD when it's actually a trauma issue. So now it's being mistreated. So that's where we have to educate ourselves and really, really choose my words wisely. We can't keep denying the trauma that we have experienced as people.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you for a second because what you said is powerful, and I just need you to explain. Give me an example of a trauma that a child could experience that's going to show up as ADHD.
So it's generally trauma in general. And when I say that, it could be community trauma to where they have experienced, hearing gunshots, or they may have seen someone who they may not know, but get shot in the neighborhood. Or it could be in their household where that is sexual abuse or it is neglect. And I mean egregious neglect to where they may not see a caretaker for a few days or so, or they're living in a home that, is unkept or not eating. And, there is the physical abuse. So those types of things, after a while, because the child is still growing at the time that they are, what happens is this frontal lobe, this part of our brain here, is a part of our brain that helps us operate to do things like drive, like homework, like go to work, and correctly, basically process our emotions. Sometimes it keeps you from being too impulsive. Well, we have found that those who are living with trauma and ADHD often have some sort of issue with that frontal lobe, right? So that's why I say the presentation can look the same. But yes, those are some examples. But unfortunately, we as a people, and because it kept us safe, through history of our ancestors, not to talk about things, we chose to stop talking about them and hide them. But now it's hurting us.
Yes.
We have to address it so we can get proper treatment. So I really just wanted to say that to make sure that you're getting the proper treatment for your loved one. And then when it comes to the IEPs and the 504 plans, it's just also extremely important, once you show them that, hey, I'm here and I'm present, go to events like this and learn to become an advocate, to learn what you are supposed to, what you are entitled to, just as a citizen, just your basic citizen rights. And, it's amazing that you had to actually go through with a lawsuit, because the federal law says that through the IDEA, if you are not being provided with the things that are in your child's IEP, then the school district has to pay for it.
Correct.
So it's like, forget about this. Oh, we don't have the resources. We don't have the staff. That's not my problem. The law says you have to find it. The law says you have to get it for me. And the last point I want to make is, my sister right here in this beautiful dress, I love these colors. She said something about the doctors, the medical doctor's diagnosis holding more, or psychologist diagnosis holding more weight than a school psychologist diagnosis. That is very true. One thing I don't know if people knew is that the school psychologist is there to kind of direct things, and they do some assessments. They're more so to direct their child's education around their learning needs. However, whatever diagnosis that a school psychologist gives you, um, insurance companies do not recognize it. You have to have a diagnosis from a licensed
Developmental
medical doctor or a licensed psychologist, neuropsychologist, something of the sort, in order for your healthcare plan to recognize it and actually pay for services.
Okay, so great stuff.
Yeah.
And you brought up a great point in reference to insurance company and making sure our child have the right type of insurance to get them the services that they need. So I spoke earlier about that my grandson did not have private insurance. He had public insurance, and that limit the services that he could receive, or it prolonged the date on when they can see him based on the insurance. But when we did meet with the developmental doctor, he told me to look into private insurance. Now, in addition to me looking into private insurance, I have Toy that I was able to have a conversation with, Toya, and she has her own business that she helps parents that if their child needs to get a diagnosis, or if they need to go to the doctor or different things, that's her business. She goes and she helps the parents. So if you say, hey, I don't know what to do or who can I contact, then you need to be getting her Instagram information.
It's Miss Toy. It's MSTOYE SPS 2022 at Instagram.
Okay. Because she was telling me that if your child doesn't have insurance, you can still get them private insurance and they base it off your income.
So it starts in December. You can start applying for the insurance in December. But I want to say this one thing. Parents who have jobs sometimes leave their children on the medical card, but they need to add their children to their private insurance as soon as possible, because that's going to get them a slower list to be on to actually get a diagnosis and to be able to receive ABA therapy. You can receive it with Blue Cross and Blue Shield PPO. And if you can't and you have to wait to buy private insurance, it starts in December. As soon as it starts, you want to run and sign up for it, because signing up for the Blue Cross and Blue Shield is going to get you the things that you need faster. The public aid cards, they're not paying for ABA therapy. And if they are, the payment is every 6 months or every 3 months or whatever, and most places don't take it. You probably have 3 or 4 good people who actually take it. So the best thing for parents to do is to sign up for the Blue Cross and Blue Shield plan.
But I would say, is it December or November? Because you have to be on that plan at least for a month before they
It
can start.
started in December.
But it doesn't take effect until January.
If you started, you can fill out at the end of November and
Okay.
start January 1st. But most of the people are starting in January to go into, December to go into January. So it'll be the beginning of the year.
Right. So that's why
you have
if
to do
you
it in
can.
December, so it can be January 1st to start.
Okay. I think it's about a 30-day
Yeah, so
window
that's what-
before it
right.
starts. So
Right. So if you start in
I'm-
December, you can start January 1st, the beginning of the year.
prepare October, November. So therefore, in December, you have your paperwork so the baby can start receiving the services for January. Because once you get the private insurance for your child, yes, you're going to have co-payments. And there's a program, it's a grant that you can apply for to help cover, what is that, BCBA? School?
ABA therapy.
ABA therapy. So you have to pay for your insurance for 6 months. On that 7th month, pay on time every month. Then you apply for the grant. Once you apply for the grant, you pay the insurance on the first when it's due. By the 15th, the insurance company, the grant is reimbursing you that payment for the insurance. And I'm not telling y'all something I heard. My grandson has private insurance. I started in January. In July, I applied for the grant. I received the grant. And in August, I started receiving the payments. So they don't give you the payments back for that first 6 months. That's the period where you're showing them that, hey, I'm serious about this. But after that, you get the grant. Every month, I do have to send in his the payment and the bill. Let them know, hey, this is his bill. This is what I paid, and they'll reimburse me. So now I'm not paying for his ABA there. Yeah, I'm not paying for that, but he still get the services every month. So that's something out there. They have other grants available too to help with speech therapy, right? I'm still looking into those. I'm going to apply for some, but yes, it's a journey and it's an investment. But if we invest in our children now when they're younger, that investment's tenfold when they get older. I don't have to worry about learning how to communicate because he has an AAC device now. And let me tell y'all, his favorite button on there is I need a break. And he that button and say, I need a break. He tells me I'm hungry. I want a blueberry muffin. I'm thirsty. When I tell y'all, it's wonderful for this baby that can't communicate, but he knows how to tell me on his AAC device, again, that the school, when I asked them for it, told me that was considered screen time. And screen time is only for their school district. They only allow 15 minutes a week for screen time. That's what the school district told me when I brought up, hey, what about getting him an AAC device? And I was like, oh, okay. Now, I also learned recently, but that didn't stop me. I kept going. I went to do the testing. Within 10 months, he had his own AAC device. It could have been quicker if the school would have helped me, but don't worry, we got it. But now that I know that, the school shouldn't have told me that that's considered screen time when that's his form of communication. He couldn't tell us anything, but he only acted out. Well, he probably told some people something if he knew science, but I just didn't understand it. So again, don't let them tell you that your child communication device is considered screen time. No, that's teaching your child how to communicate in this so he can communicate his needs to us. Now, were you going to say something?
The only thing I was going to say was just like I'm just to clear up any confusion. The BCBA is the one that provides ABA therapy. Like that's affiliated.
With okay.
Yeah, like so sometimes you'll see BCBAs in school districts. Sometimes you'll see them in group homes, whether for children or for adults. And then you see them like providing the ABA therapy. One more thing I did want to say though, that I have seen since I've worked with individuals living with intellectual disabilities and adults across the lifespan, is that I applaud you all for taking the steps that you need to help your children while they're still children. Because one thing that I know Toya and I have seen over the years is how unfortunately, sometimes we forget that the two things that we have to do in this life are stay black and die. Like we will die one day. And, you know, we hold on to our children. And I have been in homes where an individual is elderly and still caretaking their child with intellectual disabilities. And one of the first questions I asked them, and some people, you know, feel like it's morbid, but I have to be realistic, and I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the people that I help if I'm not, you know, getting to the nitty gritty with them and asking, what are your plans for your loved one when you pass, when you expire? And a lot of you will be surprised at how many people do not have a plan. So I you know, if you know someone else, encourage them to get the help that they need so they can start transitioning their loved one to living in, you know, a community as great living arrangements, what we call CILAs in the state of Illinois, for adults, and getting them the services that they need as a child also, because we do have some of our loved ones who can't communicate. And therefore their form of communication is to hit, is to bite, to spit, to do throw things and do all those different things. And it's much simpler for us to treat that behavior when they're itty bitty. But when they get to grown man size, unfortunately, there have been several times when we have Toy and I've gotten those phone calls like, hey, we need help. But by that time, that loved one that's calling us is afraid of their own loved one. And I have unfortunately have to tell them, if you're afraid and they know you, there's nothing that I can do. At that point, you're in crisis. And you will have to go to the hospital to get them medicated so we can decrease that aggression and someone can actually come in and work with them. And that's always the last thing people want to hear. People don't want the medication. I get it, because our people have been harmed so much over the years through the medical system that medication sounds scary. But I also want to say medication is not the worst thing in the world. Sometimes our people need medication. But anyway, I said all that to say, like, please continue to help your children now and encourage others that you may know to help their children while they're children. And don't wait until, you are older yourself and can't do so much anymore. And, that your loved one, that's just all they know is being at home with you. It's important to get them what they need as children.
No, I agree. And before I turn it to you, Misty, I wanted to say that misbehaving is a communication. They're communicating something, and we need to ask questions. Like you said, you ask your child, hey, what is it that you want me to advocate for you in school? When they're having certain behaviors and we find out what that behavior is for, we want to talk to them to ask, what are you trying to communicate that I'm not getting? So therefore, you don't have to act out in that way if they can verbally explain it, because sometimes they don't know what they're trying to communicate. So it's trial and error. We have to figure out what that behavior is trying to communicate, because all the time it's not that I'm being disruptive. And the reason I want to say that is because last year when I was virtual on the Autism and Black conference, it's a young lady. She has autism, and she was explaining that her mom loves to chew ice. She said two things that stood out to me on her presentation. One is that her mom loves to chew ice. She said when her mom is chewing ice, it feels like somebody is clawing on her insides. For some of us, if somebody's chewing ice, it doesn't bother us. But because of her, what it does to her, it feels like somebody is scratching. Now, when you give me that visual, I can say like, oh yeah, I wouldn't want to hear that either. Like that, I feel something for that. But that's how it is when a child that has ADHD or autism, they're feeling in their body is doing things differently than what ours is doing when they're hearing sound. Even the lights could affect them, or touching. Some people don't want you to touch them. And a person, in the family, you grew up in a family, everybody likes to hug, y'all come together for family events. She mentioned this too, that her aunties want her to hug them, and she really don't want people touching her. She was like, I wish my mom could just let them know that I don't want to be hugged. I don't want to be disrespectful. But now, because I don't want to be disrespectful to my family, I'm feeling a certain way if they come up and I let them hug me, versus my mom being my advocate to say, no, she doesn't like to be hugged, and it's okay. Like, she don't have to be. So I was like, wow, you have to be able to communicate with your child to understand, because not only do you have to protect them from the outside and the outsiders in the school district, sometimes you have to protect them from your own family, because they're looking at them differently or approaching things. And you need to let them know, no, my child learns differently. It's not that they don't learn. They learn. They are very intelligent, amazing kids. If we give them the right tools, right resources, like we already know, George is a success because his mom was an advocate and she provided the right tools and resources. So now we're saying we're willing, she has a nonprofit, we're willing to share the information so other parents can also become that advocate for your child. And like she was also saying that, hey, when they get older, they don't have a plan. I heard about there's a puns list. It's a lottery. Still apply for it. You can apply. I applied for my grandson at three. A three, yeah, and apply, and then they stay on the lottery. Every year you have to send some information to make sure they have your current information. But there are things, services out here that we need to be able to get to our community to share it, and then to say, come on, let's get with the people that can help you apply for it, because we need to help our babies. We need to help our loved ones.
I do want to say this real quick too
Go
about
ahead.
the puns
One
list.
second, Christian, we can speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead, Christian. Then we'll come back.
Hey, no, I just wanted to add in a couple of things from what I'm hearing. Like if your child can't communicate and they are acting out in behaviors like having meltdowns or getting physical due to wanting a preferred item or wanting a snack or being hungry, even if they can't do signs, they can do simple gestures, have them point to the item. You can show them simple signs, but any form of communication to kind of replace that negative behavior for sure helps. And it will definitely make things easier. And another thing that I wanted to comment about is transitioning to adulthood, working with families and kind of seeing this. I have had some unfortunate scenarios where in the state of Florida, they don't recognize autism as a mental illness when it comes to like crisis situation and a lot of physical aggression. So a lot of times, if a child is Baker acted, they're released within 24 to 48 hours and then scheduled with a follow up with the psychiatrist just to kind of talk about medication. But if that's not working and the physical aggression is big and you're the only one that knows how to deal with the child, it does become concerning where sometimes those hard conversations do need to be had where if something was to happen to you, who will be able to communicate with your child? Who will be able to help them in their time of need if you're the only one solely doing it? So, like, just a reminder where, yes, it's great to be an advocate for your child, as you always should be, but also make sure that you're teaching some of those skills and some of those different things and that you know about your child with other people, rather it's other relatives, rather it's different professionals that they deal with, but make sure that you do teach other people so that way you're not the sole person that knows how to deal with your child or your loved one. So just make sure that you guys keep that in mind.
Awesome.
That's a
Yes,
true
that's
statement. And someone needs to know the medication, who's prescribing the medication. All of that should be written down in like a spiral notebook. Because here's the thing. God forbid something happens to you. The child is upset. Nobody knows the medication. Days go by. Now you're taking your child to the hospital. They're giving them something that they're not used to. They're going to give them some Haldol or some other different kind of form of medication, and now their body is reacting to that, and it can make them worse. It can make them better. You just never know. So it should be at least 2 to 3 people who knows. Hey, the psychiatrist is on 87th Street. I pick up the medication at CVS. You know, different things like that.
document the process.
Yes, and it should be a
Okay.
book where it's easy. Someone can run and get the book. Like, hey, this is this. This is his ABA company. This is his psychiatrist's office. This is his doctor's office.
And that's what I'm thinking about as a gift for the conference to start the book,
Mhm.
because there's some language that we need to know. And I want to be able to give it to the parents, and then some blank pages to say, hey, you need to fill this information in with whatever triggers your child has. Let's document them. Let's let people know. It's not to, I understand that there might be some type of feeling in reference to it, and that's each of our own things that we have to work with. But when it comes to our loved person or our loved child, we need to be able to share the information. and don't care how someone else is looking at us. If our babies need to go outside because eventually something happens, they're gonna have to live without us. We need to take them to those places to show them how to act in public. And if they have a meltdown, we address them and make sure they're okay, they're safe, um they're stable, and then figure out what the problem was. And sometimes it happens. They have my grandson has some meltdowns in public, and it's okay. I addressed it. We were fine, and after he got what he wanted, he was okay. So it happens. We can't worry about what the world is thinking about us or what another person is walking around thinking when they're not in your shoes. They don't know what's going on. And sometimes, go ahead, Francis.
I just want to piggyback on this because I do have grandchildren that are on the autism spectrum, and we can't worry about, as Veronica saying, what anybody say, because we have to remember anything in life. We're not the first and we're not going to be the last. It's just that back in the day, we didn't know what the diagnosis was that they called the children bad, and things of that nature. So for us now to become advocates, because our goal is to make the world a better place, not just for our children, but everybody else, because we have a job to do. So therefore, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something to be talked about so everybody else can understand that they're not by themselves. So all of us can collectively come together and just, help make a better place for the children and adults and adults.
Because children do become adults. Okay, and go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, there's a couple things. One of the things I wanted to say when we talk about the funds list, there's supposed to be a dedicated representative at each school in the state of Illinois that can speak to parents about the funds list and what it is and the services that come along with getting on the funds list. So I'm not sure if everybody knew that, but
I did.
Okay, there's supposed to be a representative at every school. So I want to make sure that people are aware of that. And then I just had a quick story about having a meltdown in a very public place. When I was actually doing direct therapy, I had an individual I was working with, a little girl who she loved pizza and she loved bananas. And I was taking her into Target before, long before the Target boycott. And that's what we did. And I took her in there. You know how some of them had the little Pizza Hut, and for some reason this little Pizza Hut had like bananas right next to it. So she saw it one day and she could not get past it, and that's just where we were. That's what she decided to have her meltdown. Everybody looked like us. This was another little black girl. Everybody looked like us. Basically gave me that look like, oh, she need a butt beat. That's our go-to. Who helped me? It was a white woman. Said, "Are you okay? Can I help you? Can I help you carry her? Is there something?" And she helped me get her to the car because she knew what was going on. So I encourage us to. I think we know, but I just hope that we can get to a place to where we are more mindful of children with special needs, and we are looking like the old school. Oh, you need to take them to the bathroom and wear them out. And, as opposed to that, we're actually helping the individual in need. So
definitely true.
Awesome. Yes,
I can piggyback off that. I was gonna say a few things that was touched on. Probably just go backwards on it. Hey, I'm advocating and I'm neurodivergent, so hey, it is what it is. That's what we're trying to do. And so that was the main thing I was gonna say, changing how we view neurodiversity in our community. That if I'm here for anything, that's why I got up today. To even though the journey itself, like I don't feel like I've ever had shame. I had a lot of misinformation. And as I would tell the doctors a lot of time, you guys give me a lot of information, but what am I supposed to do with it? Not knowing how to implement it.
Yes.
But from the most part, like she said, ain't nothing new. We just didn't have it was all mislabeled, oh, they're just bad, or oh, they're so hypersensitive, or oh, this. And it's like, no. It's just various levels to it. And so what we're seeing a lot now is what happens when you try to make somebody shut up and be quiet and shove it away. It's not gonna, it doesn't go away. They don't get the help that they need. We have a lot. Once I moved from the near northwest side to like the south side, and plus I've also spent over 10 years out of Chicago. So when I came back and I was back on the south side, and every time, like every time we went outside, we would run into an older black man who I would say didn't receive early diagnosis or early treatment. And I started to have to tell my children, okay, this is how we operate. This is this. Like one man, he just, pull my child out the way in the store. But everybody in the store, he was very, very like a risk. And we all helped get him out the store, dealt with it. But I'm like, oh, we seeing this all the time now. Let's talk about it. And that's the thing I would say. We have to have these conversations, not just with ourselves, but with our children, with our family. When my children are out and we see various levels, because one thing I do is get your children in events where they can be around other neurodivergent children. Then they can start seeing themselves, or they might see their brother or their cousin like, hey, that's what they do all the time. Like, yeah, they do that. They're on the spectrum. You are too. I always remind my kids that when we see a different level, they say, oh, what's this? I say, oh, well, he's a higher level than you. But you do that stuff too. You used to scream at the highest decibel as well too. You don't remember that. But basically, so then they can change how they view their peers, how they interact with each other, how like it doesn't have to be a taboo, because it's not taboo. It's nothing different. You literally just operate from a different part of your brain. You're not broken. None of that. And God says literally train a child to their gifts and their talents. So God already said we was all made different anyway. But yeah, so I was gonna say that I didn't know about like the world when you were coming into, and thank God that I've had a lot of things that I could say I'm grateful for, but one was staying at home with my children, because I was able to stay at home with them and still have income coming in. So I was really able to focus on them. I was able to, when my son presented, and because we actually took the test, I think when they said he really wasn't old enough to be able to officially get a diagnosis. He was barely there. I'm like, oh, let's do it. It's a few months, But even then, the wait lists were massive for like the help. And they were like, well, he doesn't need as much. So thank God, because I had already, like I told you before, once I had the inclination in my mind, like I had already just started doing the work. Like I had the time, had the resources, it was being put out there. If I followed a woman and whether her child had a level 3 or a level 4, if she was saying this is what she did with her child, then that's what I was doing with my child. And so early on, like things that I would say I would help, like because now I have my children that I speak on, but as far as my nephews and things like that, we have various levels of autism. But my children are more in that level 1, level 2 aspect. And for my son, early on, when he would want things or he would try not to speak or things, but he loved food. I tell people, I said, I found out what he loved. He loved food. So it wasn't like I'm starving you, but if you really want it, say something, say a sound, give me something. And that's how I started with the work with him over time. And so I just wanted to say that, because I do know once I like got to Chicago and I tried to get the help and the resources, and I was like, 2 years, wait, like I was like, oh wow, thank God, like that I had the time to be able to do that for myself. But even if you don't have a lot of time, there's so many communities out here. Like I really want to stress the online community. Like for us as a Black and brown people, this is every day I see people going on there like getting diagnosis for themselves or for their children, based off things that like someone shared their story. Like literally there's power in your story.
Yes.
And so I really want to say that, like, regardless if you have to wait, never wait in vain. Like always be actively doing something. And then I was going to show you 2 examples of like various children, kind of like how I've actually recent example as of just yesterday.
Okay.
And so, and actually, I said this when I was coming. I said, I guess God wanted me to test me to kind of see, like, okay, you want to go speak on autism, then you have to really speak on the full spectrum of autism, right? And so I was watching someone's child, and he is not very verbal, and could be seen as like acting out. So he was flipping out, and I have about 8 kids at his home, and about 5 of them are all like they're various of the spectrum, and so I'm like, okay, what to do, and he's flipping out, and so you know what I said? I said, hey, I told you the girls to go on. I said, you guys, y'all stay down here. I asked the boys, I said, you guys come upstairs, and they're like, oh, we can't. They're trying to get him to do stuff. I said, no, leave him alone. I said, they want to give him a tablet. I said, do not give him the tablet. Do not give him the tablet. I said, go in the room. I said, y'all read books and earn the tablet. So I told them, y'all gonna read the books and I'll give y'all a tablet later, because this is how I try to trick them. Because what I'm trying to do is co-regulation really, really matters. I'm now regulating the environment, because if I can't get the child to regulate themselves, if I'm not, like, if it was my child, I kind of, my baby, you all know your baby is still kind of tied to the mom. So if I can regulate myself, I can bring my baby down. But, I'm not this parent mom, so I can still keep the volume down. And so I had them go and read the books. And then him just kind of like just be himself. He stomping his feet and, whatever. I said, just leave him alone. Let him be to himself. He stomped his feet, run around. He looked. He, make a little noise, come back. But eventually he brings himself down, Actually, I felt good. I said, ooh, I utilized all that stuff, because it's right off the bat, you don't know this, but like I said, I've been in the game for a while, and I've had to do different things with my own children, but also I have other children that come around that I watch all the time that are on various levels, and even some that, they say they don't eat, he don't eat, he don't do this. I said, okay, well, my one that people say he only eats certain things. I'll sit him with me. I'll try to eat him. No. I try to eat. No. I said, oh, I won't eat it, man. And I'll let a little bit touch his lip. And he said, oh, I don't want it. Then I just sit it right there. Then he might come back and have a little piece. And then I'll say, You want some? No. Then come on. And I'll get him to eat a little bit. Like, it takes a lot, but I can get him to eat something very different. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to say that, like, regardless of how frustrating it can be, I go back to what I said before. Is your child okay? It's always about whatever you're seeing. Are they okay? How can they get okay? What's going on? Okay. Just like when they say with the baby, you ate, is your papa wet?
Exactly.
You just start checking the list off, Oh, well, okay, maybe you're tired. 9 times out of 10 is tired. But don't make them go lay down, because then they're going to flip out, Mm-hmm. Just let them quiet the environment and let them calm down, And so I'll say that. That's all I want to say was my piece. I also would say, too, that the early intervention, like when you were talking about the prison to pipeline, mm-hmm. I utilized that in my speech when I said I had to go send an email to my son's teacher about the 504, because I said, hey, again, I want you to say why my son needs the IEP and why you see what's going on. And I said, we already know that Black and brown boys are already marginalized in this area. And I said, and we already know about the prison to pipeline. So you guys can help him right now where he's not already being very disturbing, is low behavior. And I'm telling you, how we can utilize it. Or otherwise, it's going to end up a bigger thing. So I always use evidence. I mean, you have to just think about it. Like I said, I bring it back to a lawyer during a case, but even with doctors, if they say, oh, I don't present this, oh, I got this video from 6 months ago, and they say, oh, wow, oh, that's it. Keep the evidence, keep videos, keep pictures. All of those things help you, in your advocacy journey, and more than anything, getting a community. Because even if there's a long time for these services, like I said, there's people like me. That's just somehow it just happened to be who I was. Every time I go outside with my children, we will end up in a community like that. And it's like, well, I can show you what, if you're open to. There's a lot of people who's not open to, and that's fine too, because I'll just still ways you can sneak and help your child and help them with the mama the information, But if
Correct.
you're open to it, I'll help you. I'll show you because one, there's no shame. I'm not gonna hide and say, oh, actually, people always I say, oh yeah, my son got autism too. They what? Oh my god, yeah, he used to be this too. Oh yeah, what do you do? No, I just kept at it.
That's
So,
true. Thank you for sharing. No, that's a lot of good points. It was two things I wanted to piggyback on that you were saying. One about not keeping your child secluded or in the house. Bring your child out. Because Tawana, you were mentioning you have a nonprofit and you have events for children. And last year, me and Tor did several events, and we're doing them this year to try to get parents to bring their child out. And at one of the events, my grandson had a whole meltdown because he knew he was at Odyssey Fun World. Well, he wanted to go play with the rides, but I'm trying to get everything situated for the event. He didn't care about none of that. None of that. He just want to know, where can I get my tokens for my rides? I need to be on this ride, and then I need the pizza. But for a week, and then at bowling, one of the family, her child had a meltdown. So it's okay. We ain't look differently. It ain't no big scene. It's let's take care, make sure the child is okay, and let's go back because in society things happen, and we cannot hide our children from what the world is. We just need to be able to one share the information because one day the world will be more accepting. But today is not the day, and that's okay. But we're not going to hide our babies or our loved ones. We're going to bring them out and we're going to teach them as well as we're learning. And if we have to teach society, they're going to have to just learn.
It's one thing I just want to say for parents who see something at an early age with their children. Please take advantage of Easter seals. You can get some good things with Easter seals, but you have to talk to them. You can't expect people to do the work for you. You call Easter seals, you get in touch with Easter seals through daycare, and you talk for yourself.
Or you can go, but it's Easter Seal has a cutoff.
Yes.
It's from 0 to 2.5.
Yeah, I was going to.
Okay, yeah, we got to let them know about them cutoffs.
I was about to say, I got to just explain it to them to start early. Use Easter seals. 0 to, you might as well just say 2.5, because once your child reaches 2.5, it's really no good because by the time they get the services, developmental speech and everything out there, it's over with. So if your child is not mumbling some type of words at least by 16, 18 months, I would be trying to seek help for my child. If they're going to say something around that 2-year mark, they're not saying anything, that's a concern. And I would start with Easter seals because it's free. The speech is free, developmental is free. And with the medical cards, it's such a wait list to even get in. And by the time you get in again, your child has reached another age milestone and you're not going to receive any help because they don't take the medical card for speech.
Correct.
And developmental therapy.
That's true. And I want to touch on two things with that. So your child ages out of Easter seals at about 2.5. And they say when the child turns 3, you go to your school district.
Mm-hmm.
And then the school district is supposed to help you. So let me just share with you all this too about my grandson. So we realized at one something he wasn't speaking. And some just said, well, maybe he can't hear. That's the reason he's not speaking. So we went to the doctor. The doctor said, okay, well, let's have him test for his hearing. Now, the baby loved Coco Melon. Wherever Coco Melon at, it grabs his attention. So when they took him to do the ear evaluation, they said, no, he's fine. The baby will be talking before he turned 2. 2 came and went. He still wasn't talking. And that's how the doctors can put you off. Then I found out about Easter seals. And then Easter seals was like, okay, well, he's 2.5. So you probably need to go to the school district. And that's when we went to the school district and they said, okay, well, we only test 3 times throughout the year. We had just missed that August testing. So I had to do the October testing. The October testing, we did it. And they said, okay, well, we see something wrong. Now we need more testing. And they took 21 days to do that. And then 10 days after that, they called us for a meeting. So know that the doctors can give you the runaround. And I was also informed this. So if the doctors give you a runaround or they're not taking the information you're providing to them, it's okay to go get another doctor. Take your child to another doctor to let them know what's going on, because we need people that's willing to work with us and explain it so therefore we can understand it. At whatever level that we understand, break it down to me. If you need to say, hey, explain that to a 7-year-old, you need the information so therefore we can address. Okay, so now with all that being said, okay, Twana, tell us more about your organization that does outreach for families.
I'm the vice president of All Families United, and we formed that in 2015 because our children wasn't always invited everywhere. So, like you said, you take your child out to the store, different places, and they have a meltdown, and everybody just stand because they don't know about autism. And so, me and my sister was like, let's just try to start a organization to try to get our kids out. So that's when we started All Families United, and we have a bowling event. We just had our 10th annual Light It Up Blue event.
Awesome.
Thank you.
10 years.
Where we
Amazing.
release balloons. We have a paint events. We just had different events. We try to do like 4 events, and then kind of try to have one for the parents. So we had like a line dancing event. That'll be one of the events. But the kids are always welcome to any event. Because they love to do the line dancing too. Also, they hear that music and they get to dance. So
Awesome.
that's why I was formed, because we felt like our children wasn't invited, or we didn't like the stares and the looks that we was getting when we was out in public. And like you said, when we're at those events, when we're at the bowling alley at the events, or the skating, when we rent out the facilities, it's all of us and the kids melting down, nobody not paying attention because it's normal to us. We don't even care. So they rolling around, they doing whatever, jumping, they stimming, they being themselves. And that's why we like to have those events. Nobody not looking, they just free. You're free to be you at our events. And it's always family oriented. Bring the whole family. Nobody has no age limit. Everybody come out.
Awesome. I'm gonna need you to start sharing that information with me, and we're gonna plan some things. Awesome. Okay, y'all know this has been a wonderful conversation. So we're gonna take the last few minutes for a last question. Each person, I want to answer the question, and then I'm gonna give you all the rest of your day back. Thank you so much for our online guest that has been rocking with us the whole time. I want to especially thank my panelists for coming out, the volunteers, the people that's helping me, because hey, I think this event, we didn't have any hookups, and y'all know I'm still learning this tech and internet stuff. So I want to thank everybody for participating. But so the last question is, what is one thing parents need to start doing today to better equip them for tomorrow with their children? So we're going to start with online with Christian, and then we're going to go to.
So I will say one thing that every parent needs to be aware of and at least do their research on, so when that time comes, they have all the information needed, is guardianship. As far as when their child turns 18, legally, the school no longer has to give you information, the doctor no longer has to give you information. You are technically not the guardian anymore of that loved one, even if their disabilities show the need that they do still need a guardian. You will still need to go through that guardianship process. So just becoming aware of it and knowing the different steps to take, so that way the school can't play in your face, doctors can't play in your face. If you want to know information, you have the right and the access to do it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, Tawana, we're going to come back to you.
Okay. She spoke on it earlier. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Kelly
spoke on it earlier, but that's one thing that I always leave a parent with is to make their presence known all the time, because I can tell you from experience, my presence got my sons way here today because they knew they had the answer to me because they was gonna see my face every day. So or they had to talk to me because even if you didn't see my face, I'm just gonna call you. I need to know the reports. I need to know what was going on, and that was for everybody, the medical professionals, everybody. They'll tell you my presence was always there. The school bus, the school aides, the aides, everybody. I made my presence known, and it did help my child. I can tell you that he was prom king about 10 times. He was and everybody number one. That's because they knew that they had to answer to Miss Boo. So I would just always that's the main very important to make your presence known. They know that they have someone fighting for them. They know that they have someone that care about them, and they will do their job as long as they know that they have to answer to someone.
Okay, awesome. So we're gonna go with George next. What would
Um,
you want to tell a parent or a child?
I would say just have patience. You know, we don't have answers to everything, so the time will come and if you have all the information, just have the patience to get all the information and help your child to get to what they need to be in the future.
Awesome. Sounds great. Francis.
I would say just just continue to research. Just continue to gather information, to go to different events such as this and be a part. So if it's not you, it's somebody else that you'll be able to help from gaining knowledge from being around other things and becoming an advocate. That's most important, just to become an advocate to support and to bring back information that you learn, just continue to learn. If you at home scrolling on Facebook, just scroll up something that, just to get some information, seeing what's new out here. If it's a better way or what events that you could probably bring back to someone, say, hey, let's try this with them, see if they like this. I've been in the social service field for over 30 years now. And unless I can relate to what we seen back in the day versus that we didn't know what it was, dealing with children that was developmental disabled. That's what we were calling, not knowing it was autism.
Correct.
Now I'm straddling off into mental illness,
Correct.
because that's another venture I'm stepping off in because I need to learn about those different things, what caused it and things like that. So I could better be an advocate all the way around the board. So that's what I would tell individuals, grandparents, aunties, uncles, cousins. They say it takes a village,
It does.
so therefore to know today, not to say, oh, they acting crazy. No, they didn't have an episode. That's all. We all have episodes.
Oh my goodness.
We all do. What's the difference too much between normal and abnormal? You know what I'm saying? So all of us a little, So therefore, yeah, it's just learning more and being more of an advocate towards it.
All right, Miss D.
I would say to validate your child and yourself, um, to always pour into them, to their identity, to their self worth, um, to get yourself around a accepting community. That way you can feel supported as well as they can feel comfortable to be themselves, to show the full array of who they are and not mask all the time. Um, I would say take care of yourself. It's very hard to keep giving and giving, the mental battle, the stress of sorting through information and all of that. I would say take care of yourself because, like I keep saying, it's a co-collaborating. You take care of yourself, it makes it easier to take care of the child. You take care of yourself, they see you taking care of you, they mimic it. Just so many benefits from being there for yourself so that you can be there for your children or child or your community. It doesn't have to just be um, your family directly. It can be a neighbor, a friend's child. Like you said, a lot of times we will see these situations happening in the grocery store and things, and people just walk past. I'm really sucks that you said none of the black women came and helped, but to be that community that you want to see. So take the time out sometimes to help another autism mom or ADHD mom or that's in need. And lastly, but most importantly, stay grounded in faith. Keep God at the center of everything. Um, that's really it.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Kelly.
Um, I don't want to get too deep, but I feel very strongly about saying this. Um, we have to do our own healing and not be in denial about what it is we're seeing within our own households and our communities. Um, there are there are several situations, including a personal situation I have. I don't mind sharing. My youngest sister, I knew something was wrong with her when I just started studying this and I was still in school. I was like, something isn't right. And we don't have the same mother. And I used to tell my father, like, Daddy, something like I don't think she's okay. You gotta get her checked out. He's like, oh, she'll grow out of it. She'll be okay. She is now a grown woman who still thinks like a 12, 13-year old. And I get enraged with my own family because when my father and her mother pass on, guess who's going to be left to take care of her? Me and my other sister. Um, so I say that to say, let's not be in denial about what we are seeing or are not seeing when our children don't meet their developmental milestones. Please get them the help that they need ASAP. Because again, the longer you wait, the more difficult it is for them to learn the skills. As the saying goes, you can't teach your own dog new tricks. While you can, it's much more difficult to do so.
So true.
So it's very important while the child is at an age where their brain is still very much a sponge and developing, that we're teaching them as much as we can and getting them in that time frame to where we're less likely to see some of the more extreme behaviors because we're teaching them what they need at that point in time. And then it's like the earlier you get into it and start doing your research, the more you come into communities like this, the more you start meeting more people and more groups to support you in what you need. And then it's not so difficult when they're transitioning and becoming an adult.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Tor.
I just want families to know that there's no dumb question when you're at a physician's office, a school, or in a community. Um, what will be something is to walk away and not know. If you have to ask several times, it's okay. It's okay. We all have to ask several times about different situations. If it was concerning your money or your vehicle, your main things, you would ask several questions. So do the same thing when you're at the doctor's office, because it's your given right to ask for a referral. If you feel like your doctor is not understanding what you're asking for, just ask for a referral to a person that can understand and answer your questions for you and your family's needs. You can just say, hey, well, can you refer me out to someone else? And I go over here and try to get some answers. You don't have to just sit there and walk away with a no answer and you still leaving out the door with the same thing that you came in the door for.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Miss Deidre.
I'm just here listening, and my main, I wanted to say, I just, thank you for inviting me out. And my goal back in 1996, I started a child care, and I dealt with Down syndrome children, and I dealt with my nephew, and no one wanted to deal with him because he had problems like eating his skin and biting himself until he would bleed. So, but it's so important to get involved with what you're doing, networking and listening, and just pay attention and listening to what these children are trying to tell you. So many times we don't listen, we overlook what they're saying because we're so busy and we just don't have the time and the patience to sit down and listen. And that's where I'm at, you know, with some of the children in my program today. You know, they send them to me, and a lot of them do have problems where the parents and grandparents, whatever, are not paying attention to their needs. It's so important that we communicate with the community, and I am involved with, you know, with the community out here in Calumet City. So thank you again for inviting me.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Well, go ahead.
Say one more thing. I have two twin granddaughters. Both of them are autistic, and they're receiving services inside of a daycare, and they're 2 years old. So they can start receiving services. And while in daycare, you know, the ABA therapy helps them be able to learn, sit with their classmates, and do different things. So yes, they're getting early
Intervention
intervention
services.
services.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for sharing your information. Y'all, it's been 2 hours. But I do want to let everybody online know that we're starting the conversation now. Most of the people that spoke today will be speakers at our third conference on August 22nd. Of course, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and we're going to share the information. And we're starting a conversation today, but every 2 weeks, we're going to go live and just talk about different topics surrounding how can we become better advocates for our loved ones. We have to share the information and the resources to help. And that's what we're doing. So again, I want to thank everybody for their time, their input, because y'all could have been doing anything this Saturday. But I enjoyed that you all took the time to come to share the information from Help from a Sister. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, and I'm going to end the